Northern York, how are you? You know,
Good.
Whoa.
We're out getting petitions signed. We're good.
nice, nice. Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be back where I grew up. You know, Central York High, class of 1987, and you know, we, my family, my parents still live in the home I grew up in on Druck Valley Road there in Springersbury Township. So, you know, it's just my hometown. So it's a real honor to be with you tonight, you know, and see you really soon in person. Of course, you know, York will always hold a very, very special place in my heart. And I think it's kind of unusual. I think it's the first time ever in Pennsylvania history that the governor and lieutenant governor are both from York County too. So, you know, like, woohoo, go York. But any rate, so it's so great to be with you tonight, and just wanted to, you know, talk about our campaign and how great it's going. You know, it's I think growing up in York is really a great grounding for life. I mean, it's a quintessential, you know, Pennsylvania county, and you know, I'm really proud of the fact that I can call York home, and I visit my parents there often, and so proud product of York Public High Schools, Central York. And so, you know, being lieutenant governor through the pandemic, as you know, I mean, it's you know, lots changed in our state and in our Commonwealth, and as you know, this is a tough cycle for Democrats. I mean, let's be honest here. You know, York isn't exactly a sapphire blue kind of county and proposition. I mean, of course, York County never has been. You know, so you know what it's like to be a strong Dem organization and an overwhelmingly, you know, red county overall. But our campaign is really the strongest grassroots campaign in the country among challengers, Republican or Democrat. I'm proud to say that we just crossed the 185,000th donor to our campaign. So that's 185,000 people have donated to our campaign. And if that was a city in Pennsylvania, that would be our third largest behind Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And that has translated into a level of organic grassroots enthusiasm that we are now in roughly 90% of Pennsylvania zip codes. We have a density of our donors in 90%, and that creates kind of a new map. And that map is what we believe that stands the best chance to win this seat and turn it blue in November, quite frankly. And that has also, that level of deep grassroots enthusiasm has translated into, we just crossed the 500,000 donations mark, unprecedented. And then we also, that's translated into a very significant and substantial lead in the polls here as a Democrat. And I'm also proud to say we have been up on television statewide over the past week, and we're going to stay up at a really big margin until the primary. So the race is going incredibly well, and we're running on core values and democratic principles, you know, that I've always stood for and fought for in my life, whether it's a living wage that you can actually achieve some level of financial stability and security, whether that is universal access to healthcare, whatever that looks like, that's what I'm going to vote for, whether it's the union way of life, whether it's reproductive freedom, whether it's our voting rights. And I've consistently said in this race that if Democrats must come together and vote like Democrats. I also say this in rooms from coast to coast, if you will, of Pennsylvania to the northern border with New York, to the southern border with you all in Maryland, or even in West Virginia, out where I live with my family now. And I mean no disrespect to the senator from West Virginia, if Joe Manchin is, you know, the kind of senator that you're looking for, that's not me. And that's not a knock against Joe Manchin. I just believe that we as Democrats have to come together and vote like Democrats and deliver for the American people. And that includes a lot of really important big ticket items like voting rights, whether that's codifying Roe v. Wade, given that the Supreme Court looks likely that it's going to diminish or outright strike it down, or whether that is a minimum wage. I mean, you know, we Democrats right now, our caucus can't get past the $7.25 an hour. I think that's shameful. You know, Hobby Lobby starts their workers at $18.50 an hour. You know, the Democratic caucus in the Senate, you know, we can't get it to past $7.25. So I think there's a big mismatch of priorities. Gun control legislation. Why doesn't it happen? Why doesn't it happen? Because of the filibuster. We've consistently called for the elimination of the filibuster. We were the first campaign to do that. In fact, now that's become kind of the universal, you know, I can't think of anyone in the Democratic side now that isn't calling for that. But now it's like, well, if we do that, the Republicans are going to use it. It's like, well, of course they're going to get rid of it. They'll do the same thing. Republicans are ruthless and united. And I just believe if I'm lucky enough to be our next senator, you know, I would want to be ruthless and united for working families in Pennsylvania, you know, not to get tax breaks to the, you know, ultra wealthy, not to do those kind of things, but just to make some really important things happen here in our Commonwealth. So growing up in York County, I think, you know, served me well. And you know, we have, you know, a true grassroots campaign here that's really rolling really great. So it's just always an honor to be back in York County, and just want to turn the floor over if anyone has any questions or anything, what have you. But thank you so much for the opportunity to drop in and visit with you all.
Hey, I have a question. John, what do you think are the top 3 issues, the most pressing issues in the Senate today, the United States Senate?
Today, or I mean, you know, like in terms of like domestic agenda? Either. Well, I mean, you know, right now Ukraine's kind of sucking a lot of the oxygen out of the air, and I fully support Joe Biden's decision to boycott Russian oil. But let's be honest, also that's, you know, it's, you know, I think between 5 to 8% of our, you know, so it's not like, you know, we're a huge consumer of Russian energy. But I also believe that we need to help and stand with the Ukrainian people whenever we can. But I'm also very wary of getting into a hot war with Russia over it as well too. I'm very leery of being drawn into a conflict with Russia, quite frankly. So helping the Ukrainian people any way we can without triggering what would be amount to us going to war with Russia. I think we would want to avoid that at all costs. Another pressing issue in terms of is addressing inflation. I think it's going to be a tough cycle for Democrats here in Pennsylvania and across the country. I don't know any Democrat that would be looking forward to the prospect of running when gas is $5 a gallon, you know, come November. And if we're not able to figure that out, what that looks like, I mean, you know, Russia or not, you know, it's going to be a tough environment. And whether it's some kind of build back better redo where it's, you know, it's stripped down and we incorporate cost cutting savings, whether it's prescription drugs, whether it's some kind of energy rebate tax, you know, to help folks that are spending too much on gas and what have you. Whatever it looks like, we need to address inflation to the extent that we're able to do that. And then also my personal priorities, if I'm in the Senate, would be, again, living wage. It would be healthcare. It would be responding to what could very well be the ending of nearly half a century of Roe v. Wade as well too. And then also making sure that we try to figure out a way to enact some universal voting protections here in our country. I mean, the Republicans are setting the table for 2024. I mean, that's their end game, you know, is the Trump second term of in the White House. And they're already trying to strip out the guardrails. They're already enacting these kind of laws and legislation in all these states. And now I don't know if you noticed that the Supreme Court, at least the minority right now, sided with this idea that legislatures ultimately have the supreme, you know, final say on the presidential electors. which is horrifying, which means that no matter what, say, Pennsylvania voted, because the Republicans control our legislature and the House, they could say, well, that's nice, thank you for that, but we're going to pick our own set of electors. So it's very alarming, quite frankly, to see the way they're behaving with respects to the upcoming 24 election, and our own challenges being the party in power versus the out of party dynamic, which is historically rough. But we also have emergence from the pandemic, and then we also have inflation at a 40-year high. So it's going to be a challenging environment to be sure, and we believe we are in a decent position to win.
So may I speak?
Of course.
So, hello, John. So with respect to voting rights, how do you feel about the idea, and I've floated this by the group here, how do you feel about open primaries? I mean, it just seems to me that
I don't have a problem with open primaries. Pennsylvania, whoever runs the independent voting block ultimately will win Pennsylvania. Independents play a critical role here, and I certainly don't oppose open primaries in that sense, for sure. But at the end of the day, my concern about voting in Pennsylvania is the Republicans are looking to amend our Constitution here in the state that mandates, ID every time, not just when you sign up, but every time, which is, again, outrageous, because in 2020, when 7 million people voted, we had 5 cases of voter fraud, and they were all deceased relatives voting for the former president. I mean, it
is outrageous. Yeah,
it is outrageous. You literally have a better chance of winning on a PA lottery scratch off, the jackpot, than you have encountering legitimate voter fraud here in Pennsylvania. And that's the tragedy of it. And no one knows that better than the Republicans themselves. They know there's no voter fraud. I love asking them, like, well, you were on the same ballot, right? It's like, yeah, but the voters love me. But we rigged it for Joe Biden, I'm sure. So it's illogical and it's unfair, but that's what they're planning to do. And generally in Pennsylvania, constitutional ballot initiatives tend to pass.
So my thought here is that, by having open primaries, that gets the sort of the crazy out of the system, right? So, you get more moderation because you're not appealing to the 1/3 of the Republican Party that turns out, for example, to these elections. Now you have to appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Am I like off base here, or what do you think?
I don't think you're off base at all. I mean, if you're registered an independent, you essentially have no voice during the primary process.
Exactly.
You're kind of way in too late. And anymore, like, the Republican Party doesn't have a moderate wing that I'm aware of. If you don't agree that Donald Trump's the greatest president in the history of the world, and 2, that he was robbed in 2020, you don't have a role in Pennsylvania GOP, right, or any national GOP party. Right. I mean, that's the truth. So, and in terms of Democrats, I mean, what's a moderate Democrat anymore? If a moderate Democrat is someone that's going to destroy the Democrats' national agenda from passing, or block the president's agenda from passing, I'm not a moderate Democrat. I think we're all Democrats that we need to come together and get some things done, because we're in a really pivotal and special time. We need to meet the moment, here as Democrats. That's what I believe.
Can we move to another question now?
Thank you, John.
That really is that's really a state issue. So at this point, so Cliff, okay, Cliff had his hand up. So Cliff, go if you don't mind next, and then we'll go down to Kathy.
Okay, thank you. First, Ms. Fetterman, thank you, and extend thank you to your wife who attended the Ask Me Women's Conference this past weekend. I know a couple of women that attended, and they were blown away. They just love her.
She had the best time. thank you so much. I'll definitely pass that on to her, but she legitimately had like the best time ever. And so thank you for that. You know, she jumped at the chance and it was a great opportunity. Yeah, so it was wonderful. Thank you for that.
Okay. The main thing I wanted to talk about was I've talked to Democrats in the past few months, mentioned your name, and they're not impressed with your political view on socialism. And I explained to them, socialism is an economic viewpoint rather than a political viewpoint. And when they point out Mussolini or Lenin or Stalin, even though they're communists, that's who they mention. You have to mention somebody like Magdalena Andersson of Sweden.
Yeah,
You know, places that are very stable economies.
Cliff, can I just stop you? I'm not a socialist. I've never been a socialist. I'm a Democrat. Always have been a Democrat. You know, like I'm a Democrat. You know,
social issues.
Yeah, and that's the truth. It's like, and if you don't believe me, there isn't anyone in this Democratic primary or any national Democratic primary that's running on any issue different from what I was running on during my first race back in the 2015-2016 race. So, you know, I don't know any Democrat that honestly thinks that I'm it's just, you know, like I'm a socialist, like I have a beautiful head of hair. You know, I mean, it's just no basis in any universe. You know, just good old fashioned Democrat that believes we need to deliver, you know, basic good democratic principles and ideals for our country. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bernie, am I up? Okay. Lieutenant Governor John, hi. Given that we are Democrats that are interested in social issues, you also haven't touched yet on the immigration issue as well as some of the racial issues that we have in this nation. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand on those?
Immigration. Well, I think we can have a secure and compassionate border and response. I think we need to leverage as much technology in terms of effectively figuring out, you know, the shipment of drugs at the border to make sure, like, you know, fentanyl and the surge of drugs coming through. We've actually confiscated more than any administration, you know, and we need to continually evolve with the technology to make sure that we stop as much of that as we can at the border. My wife, Giselle, who Cliff just graciously gave a shout out to, was a former Dreamer. So immigration is very near and dear to me. And I believe immigration makes America, America. And I think we need a comprehensive immigration reform package, you know, here in this country. And I believe that you know, it's going to be difficult because, you know, Republicans always have a way of, you know, ginning it up at election time. The whatever they called it, I don't know. In my election, you know, it was the horde or the mob or whatever was coming up from Central America. They try to demagogue and demonize these poor folks. So yeah, I've, you know, again, my family's origin story. I mean, I'm, you know, born and raised in York, of course. Well, born in Reading, but raised in York. But my wife's Brazilian, and I believe immigration makes America, America. Racially, in terms of that, I'm the former 4-term mayor of a town that's around 75% Black, and it's where I currently live here in Braddock, Pennsylvania. So I've spent much of my career in public service, whether it was a GED instructor and program director, and as a small town mayor, working to address the disparities and the inequality, you know, we have in our society, you know, in terms of racially. And I'm proud to say that we took on a lot of issues here in Braddock, whether it was gun violence, whether it was education, whether it was healthcare after UPMC killed our hospital, whether it was basic economic development. So I feel that I have a very unique perspective on all of that, given what I've spent my career working in. And then as Lieutenant Governor, one of the things I championed was the power of a second chance, the power of if you're living your best life and your mistake were made long ago and they were done through addiction, or they were done through just making a dumb mistake or whatever, you know, you shouldn't have to pay for that for the rest of your life. So we've really been leading the nation, quite frankly, in second chances. So I think I have a really good informed perspective. No one has to agree with me on everything, of course, but it comes from, you know, shared and lived experiences. You know, my views on the two issues that you brought up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joey, you're next.
Hi, first of all, thank you for coming to speak to us. On a lighthearted note, you support Sheets a lot for someone that was raised in York County. Why no love for
I know that's
Rudders?
the Dubs, yeah.
But
Yeah.
secondly, on a more serious note, I know you have been very supportive of LGBTQ plus issues, and in the news the past couple of weeks, our trans kids, our LGBTQ kids, are facing a lot of isolation in different states, on a not state level, on a federal level. Do you have any plans for protecting our LGBTQ kids and keeping our nation safe for them to thrive in?
Yeah, it's an issue that's near and dear to me. I'm proud to say that I was the only elected official in the entire Commonwealth that was willing to perform gay marriages back in 2013 when they were still illegal. Then Governor Corbett threatened to have me arrested if I continued to perform them. And I was like, hey, you know where I live. You can send the gay police and come get me if you want. And I'm proud to say that you know, during that period of time, I solemnized over 24 of them before the Superior Court in Pennsylvania stepped in and shut it all down. But ultimately, we came to our senses and we allowed you know, marriage equality. I mean, it should have never been any other way, in my opinion. It's a stain on our society. And then as Lieutenant Governor, I began to push for equal protection under the law added to our state's constitution. It's a very conservative principle, if you will. I don't understand why Republicans don't support that. It's just, you know, you're no better, no worse. We're all equal in the eyes of the law. I mean, it's what we all deserve. And I started hanging pride and trans flags. I was the first elected official to fly pride and trans flags at the Capitol like that. And then they actually passed a law banning me from doing that as well too. So I literally, you know, it's against the law to that. So the truth is, I'm always going to keep pushing. The truth is, it's a disgrace and a stain on our society. The truth is, I can't imagine anyone that gets political juice or capital or votes by bullying or demeaning trans kids. You know, being a teenager is hard enough. Being trans, you know, and a child, it must be, you know, I mean, we need to support them. And I don't understand why anybody would want to make someone feel different or less because of who they love or how they identify. And that's a value that I've carried with me my entire life. It's a value that I'll carry with me to Washington, D.C. if I'm lucky enough to be your next senator. And there'll never be a situation where I'm not constantly pushing for that. And there'll never be a vote that I would not cast, regardless of the political consequences, even though, you know, that was what I faced, you know, being convicted of a crime and being forced to resign my office for marriage equality back in 2013. So it's a lifelong value, and it would always have my vote and my support and my advocacy.
Thank you.
Sorry, my 7-year-old, I don't know what he's doing.
No one is mad. No one is mad about that.
You might as well come on in. Yeah, hey, you know. Hi, this is August.
Hi.
Noise. Hey, thank you, August. So I got some homework I guess we gotta do, but but anyway, Northern York, thank you so much for inviting me into your living room, your bedrooms, your studies, your home offices, wherever I'm at. You know, it's been a pleasure. And Jordan has our contact information. We'll see you all really soon. So thank you for being great Dems in a red county. And you know, and yes, you know, I do like Sheets, but I do, you know, the governor is Team Rudders, just so you know. But you know, I'm also a fresh convert to Royal Farms chicken too. You know, we just got a new one on Mount Zion Road where my you know, close to where my folks live in, and I got to recommend it. You know, there's no zealot like the freshly converted. So you know, I've kind of broken out of Sheets as well too now. So, but anyway, thank you all, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you.